It's like a thin jacket. And my nan took it and just dyed it one day, and I still wear that, and it's what, like 30, oh God, it's really old now, and it's perfect condition still. So like, I don't know, but yeah, I think it's really important for it to kind of be explored and passed down, because I feel like everything's fast at the moment, isn't it? Fast fashion, fast food and everything, and people don't take a moment to kind of sit back and realize that there are other alternatives, because everything's so fast paced. But should we move on to the second question? What do you currently find positive about the fashion and textiles industry? So this could be the movement of sustainability. This could be a gradual awareness of greenwashing. It can be anything really. The development of how models have become more inclusive and diverse. It can be anything. So for me, I think I prefer the fact that all brands are kind of developing sustainable, or a sustainable direction in a sense, or a sort of element or collection that is sustainable. I know it was not that long ago, more like 2 years ago now, didn't Burberry come out and say that they would never get, like, they weren't going to throw away anything anymore, and everything gets like reused. Might be wrong, can't really remember.
No, that's right, I think so.
Yeah, and so I'm even passionate about the fact bigger brands are doing it.
Really, can I phone you back in about 40 minutes, love?
Julia,
Julia,
you're on speaker.
Okay, she's gone.
Yeah, good. Amazing, diverse models for sure. Yeah,
I avidly am a Vogue watcher, because I'm always looking at things for Textile Skills Centre and using them as artists and designers, and I think it's definitely this year that every single show now has diversity in their models. Yeah, every catwalk show, some more than others. And that's one thing I have really noticed from this year onwards. Yeah,
see, I really do appreciate that, because I just feel like it set so many do you know what's funny about this? I feel like it set so many bad expectations, but at the same time now that doesn't really matter. People are now looking less, like when I was younger it was all about Vogue models. People now look less at that and more influencers, so it's like, yeah, it gets one sense and then gets worse in another. So yeah, people buying from small businesses, 100%. COVID was such an advocate for that, I think. That is something that I feel like really improved.
There's lots of positivity in terms of you know, organic fabrics and you know, ethical trading and stuff, but there is still a hell of a lot of greenwashing.
Yeah,
and you really do have to be careful and do your research, because there are so many brands out there who are calling things ethical, green, organic, etc., and it isn't.
Or they even get people by the packaging, like even the way, like maybe not even the words, but the way it's presented. Yeah, people do assume it's better. The same with it's crazy. But yeah, should we move on to the next question?
Yeah, go for it.
What do you currently find negative about the fashion and textiles industry? So obviously we have just kind of covered bits and bobs of this, but if there's anything anyone feels super passionate about
I think the constant use and production of more and more polyester garments. So the likes of Primark, all of them, it's not just Primark, all of them ASOS, all of them continue to use tons and tons and tons of polyester fabric. And this fabric is not going anywhere. It's, you know, it's going to be with us forever.
Yeah.
No matter how many times you try and recycle it, it will be with us forever. And we need to be using biodegradable, and that's for, you know, fibers that are biodegradable. And
yeah, I did.
Brands should be held up to account for it.
Yeah, I
get very disappointed. Sorry, go on. I get very disappointed when I read stories about greenwashing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I did my whole final year of my undergrad and created my whole collection was biodegradable. And I feel like for me, it's quite, I find the whole process, okay, let me try and articulate this. Don't get me wrong, I have used obviously ASOS next day delivery and so on, okay? It's fast, it's a quick turnaround, but I feel like it's promoting the wrong idea. Like it's waste, isn't it? People can just get something, wear it once. And one thing I don't like is this idea that people aren't aware of repurposing and upcycling. So I feel like that's something that society at the moment kind of is pushing people towards, like this whole get it when you want it. And yeah, it's just, there's just no sort of respect for material objects at the moment, or yeah, but that's just my opinion. Oh, I'm just reading the comments. So bigger companies seeing designs from smaller brands. Oh yeah, so greenwashing, yeah, greenwashing is where people say or present or kind of elaborate aspects.
Infer, I think that's the word, isn't it? They infer that
yeah,
a product is sustainable in a certain way. It's interesting because I went into Aldi today, and on this is completely to do with clothing. It said, I was looking at the toilet roll, and it said recyclable packaging paper, and I was looking for recycled paper, you know, recycled toilet roll.
yeah,
but on this toilet roll was wrapped in paper, which is obviously recyclable. Yeah. And it just said on the packet, it just said recyclable packaging. And I just thought, now that's greenwashing, because I would have picked that up thinking it was recycled paper.
Yeah, of course.
But it's not. It's just the packaging's made out of paper, which is obviously recyclable.
Recyclable.
I was just like, that's greenwashing to me.
Yeah, my mum, this is the same. My mum got this app, and it's you can scan food, you can scan beauty products, and it kind of tells you if it's good or not for you. And when she was doing it, she did it on some of my products. And we were going through it, and like some of these are promoted in certain ways and as being sustainable and organic and all this. And then we looked, and they were awful for you, and they weren't organic or anything at all. And I don't know, it's just really interesting because I don't really understand how. I understand it's not right. I feel like it should be illegal because it's not transparent and it's misleading, which is kind of a lie. So I just, yeah,
they are just getting away with it. They're just getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I move on to the next screen?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Oh, where am I? It's not moving on to the next screen.
Nope.
There you go.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the world building. Okay, so basically I want us to think about our positionality, and that means our space, where we are, who we are, where we stand. So in this world I've built, the year is 2045, and 23 years ago, on the 4th of October 2022, the government formed a Department of Fashion and Textiles Justice. Oh, it's fine, I can do it. Of Fashion and Textiles Justice. And where am I? And it was giving political power to independent creatives, so a board of independent creatives, basically. And you can think of all different specializers like knit, weave, print. So soon after, it was announced that from the 1st of January 2025, the act of mass producing clothing and accessories would become banned due to the increasingly harmful impact of the textiles industry on the environment. Now, in 2045, we live in a world that relies on secondhand and handmade clothing and accessories. High street and high-end shops have become obsolete. As a result, society depends on the process of rehoming, reusing, and upcycling. So take that in for a second. So this is basically, just imagine that we're living in this time now, okay? And then if we go to the next slide, please. So with what I've just said, I want us to develop on this hypothetical scenario and imagine ourselves living in this speculative future, the world of rehoming, reuse, and upcycle. So can we, I've basically made this, what would you call it? I can't think, not drawing, what would you call this? I've made this diagram thing, and basically it states the politics, economics, social, technological, and law and environmental elements. And what we're going to go through, and we're going to think about the world and think about what would fall into these categories. Okay, so I've done potential questions or potential elements. So for politics, you've got departments, decisions. How would these things have changed? Authority. For economics, you've got money, currency. What does currency look like? Would currency in this future still be money, or would it be clothing? Remember, there's now no more high street high-end fashion. Okay, fast fashion's gone. Would people be exchanging clothes? What is this? And trade and jobs. With social, you've got relationships, even food, cultures, shopping, class divides, technology, transport, textiles and fashion. How would it have digressed or improved? So many jobs would be gone, right? Or would there be more? And then, yeah, metaverse. And then law, you've got laws, punishment, data, information. And then with the environment, where do we live? What does it look like? What do we do, exist with? So would technology not be as important anymore? Or would we rely to source we want? So yeah, if you think of this from the perspective of, I mean, everyone here, I'm assuming, is passionate about textiles. So it's quite interesting for us to put ourselves in this position and think about how our lives would change as people that have our careers and everything in textiles. So yeah, hopefully this will spur on some interesting conversations. So politics. So we're thinking about politics. What departments and decisions?
You're starting on the hardest one, I think.
You think, okay, do you know what? We'll go down to social. Okay, so relationships, interactions. Oh, actually, no, do you know what? We'll go to economics first. I feel like that's a bit of an easier one.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, it's a lot more care code. 100%.
So
yeah.
I thinking, as we're a bit older than UK, I'm thinking 20 years, I've still got clothes from 30 and 40 years ago. So the things that would get me is things that you run out of. So I'm just like throwing this in.
Yeah,
things
yeah.
You run out of, things that do wear out, things that like you can't like just try and mend it. And you know, I'm thinking knickers, socks.
But then this is the interesting thing. How would people go? So would there be a specific shop that on Etsy or something that takes this into account and then does take old bits of scrap and then build this? And how would that affect like money? How would that affect social and relationships? Would we rely on other people to do everything, or would textile skills be something that now everyone does, not just people that are interested?
I think everybody would have to.
Yeah, 100%.
Mend their own stuff. There is a finite, even though there is like, you know, not like butter mountains, but cloth mountains at the moment. Going forward, if we had to stop now, I think there is a finite amount of fabric. If we never knitted or wove any more fabric, there is a finite amount, and therefore some things that have to be replaced. I'm thinking like in hospitals and where you have to replace stuff. I'm just not sure how it would work.
But then when you put it like this, if you couldn't, how would you? So like say if you couldn't, okay, say this was passed and you couldn't change these things, you couldn't change these things in hospitals, how would this be repurposed? How would it be? How would the system evolve to fit? How would it climatize, basically?
So I suppose stuff has to be washed, doesn't it? And I think you would have to it would have to be made out of polyester, because that will last pretty much forever.
And you're worth money.
So it's
the whole economy would change, because
yeah,
our economy is built a huge amount on the fashion industry. And when you make clothes I mean, I always taught this to you at school, when you build clothes, they have to be done by a person on a machine. There is no other way of making clothes. But if you're not able to make new clothes, and there will get to a point where old clothes will run out, or old clothes will become so you probably have to find newer ways of, or maybe very, very old ways of making new clothes.
And this can be as outside the box as well. So like, if we're thinking about our industry, if we take a second to think what other industries would rise up. So what umbrella could making this hospital wear fall under? Do you know what I mean? If it's not textiles, what other sort of materials could be used that aren't materials, okay? And it's really weird, because there's so many questions I feel like could be asked. And yeah, polyester would be a great one, but it's like, I wonder what other industries would rise up and try and kind of take it under their wing, because as well, you need to think there's a lot of money in that.
What would happen to all those countries that totally rely on producing cotton and producing things like this? I mean, their whole economy would go down the pan.
Yeah, 100%.
So you've got Turkey, you've got Portugal, you've got
India,
China, India,
America,
Vietnam, America. These huge economies that pretty much clothing manufacture or garment making is the predominant. Pakistan.
So this is,
I mean, they're going to go down anyway, aren't they? Slightly, because things are going to happen by 2050 or whatever, 2025, that is going to cut them down anyway.
Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know if it's me.
Can you hear me?
No, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. There is going to be a decline in garment making eventually. There has to be, doesn't there? Because we just make too much stuff, don't we?
And then, but this is what then leads me to think, like, in this world, I don't see currency being our currency. So I kind of think of it like, because we rely so much on it, what's to say that suddenly we wouldn't? What's to say that then think people would rise up and it'd become like creating garments was a form of currency? Yeah, clothing or making clothing was a form of currency, or like hierarchy, like your skills, could that be something that, yeah, was, what would the importance of that be? And yeah, in my mind, I just don't see it as obviously there would be a massive decline, but then what if everything switched over and yeah, an exchange was made where that was currency? I don't know, because I think everybody wears clothes all the time. Well, obviously not everyone, but there is a large proportion of society that clothing's used every single day, or some form of accessory or clothing. And
it's not just, I mean, in terms of the textile industry, you take textiles out of our homes and out of our cars and out of our offices and out of our lives,
empty.
It has to be, we have to have textiles in our lives. So we have to
become more important.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Perhaps we become more important.
I was about to say, it has to become, in some ways, it could become a currency like it used to be, hundreds of years ago. You would trade your silk scarf or whatever it was for
this is exactly
a loaf of bread or something.
Yeah, this is exactly how I see it. And then it's like, so
we're basically going back in time. We're just like,
yeah, but then it's weird, right? So obviously I've got it here. So the year's 2045, right? It was announced on, so the department got made on the 4th of October 2022, but it was announced that from the 1st of January 2025, that's when it would all kick in. So 2022, it's 3 years, okay? There are 3 years where everything stays normal. What happens in that time?
I'd hide my sewing machines so no one could get them, because they're going to be really, really worth a hell of a lot of money.
Buying loads of rolls of polyester fabric.
Yeah.
Remember, the polyester is also a finite source. So we can't have polyester forever. it's made from oil, it's fine out, we'll run out of oil.
I think that the idea, yeah, it will, but what will happen is we won't be able to make any more after this date. So you make as much as you can now. The reason for polyester, the idea of polyester, is because it does last forever. It's not going to go away, you know.
And then you
like
get
cotton, which wears out, wools that wear out.
And then you get things like the dark web and like the black market or whatever, things that, I mean, the dark web's used for like guns and drugs and so on. Would it be that would that be really the issue anymore, or would people be trying to make fabrics? And it's just this crazy idea that something so normal turns to something.
So instead of drug dealers, we've got fabric dealers.
Yeah, it's just such a weird scenario, but it's, I mean, that's,
Vicky's just said polyester costing more than gold and diamonds.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. Oh, I love that. Yeah, this is the thing. My place is always a tip because of textiles. So you know what? No one would moan anymore. Everyone would want to be around.
Oh yeah. So Sarah Martinez has just said we would be growing more flax. We would be growing more fibers that you could actually turn into something. Yeah.
Oh, do you remember?
Coveting your sheep.
Yeah. Throughout history, like people that were overweight used to be considered richer, right? And so if you think of it like this, hoarders suddenly might be considered different. I try and keep all my clothes, to be honest, genuinely, and because I do always end up reusing them and in some way. And at the moment I have friends, they just love to go out and buy new things, and that's fine. But I've always just thought, like, if this was to happen, they'd turn around and they'd be like, oh my god, can I use this, can I use that? And as well, that's another thing, borrowing. Would you let someone borrow your stuff if it was really?
I suppose there's things like, I mean, we started seeing places that rent clothing and you know, now, so maybe there would be more of that where you could actually rent. More renting of garments.
I think there would need to be a lot of laws in place.
There would.
I don't know about the punishments. I'm not really into punishment, but there would need to be a lot of laws in place. Yeah. Would we go back to male skill to weave and sew? Absolutely. I did a whole thing on that a while ago about how in the old days it was just men. That was a male-dominated industry. No women sold, made fabrics. It was all done by men.
It's interesting because when I used to travel to India, to the factories there, it was all men sewing. You wouldn't get women sewing because you know, as you say, it was a skill. So the men had the skill and the women stayed at home and looked after the kids.
Oh, do you know what? That's so. I was doing some co-design sessions today at the uni, and we were literally speaking about this, like the fashion and textiles industry, and kind of this where men and women stand and where they've stood throughout history, and like how things have evolved, and kind of our stereotypes, but what it means to us. And so yeah, some really interesting things came out, to be honest. All the comments, I have to keep clicking on it.
It's all right. Yeah, I think very interesting, some of the scenarios that would happen. But I think Dawn, Julia and me and all of us at Textile Skills Centre talk a lot about skills and mending skills and, you know, sewing button-on skills and a lot of the basic skills that people don't have. And all those skills, I think, would become very important.
Yeah,
you need to be able to remake your clothes.
Finally being able to punish pupils for using fabric scissors on paper.
Yeah, love to do that. Yeah.
Oh,
so annoying.
There's a website called Repair What You Wear, which I've been talking to the girls who run that, and they are advocates and campaigning for basic essential sewing skills to be taught as part of the curriculum. And you know, things like sewing on a button or mending your jeans or, you know, whatever, which is such a good idea because people just will throw a garment away because the buttons come off or the zip's broken or whatever. So yeah,
I'm a believer that I think it looks better. So I had this secondhand shirt, and I've worn it to to every festival I've been to. I've worn it to every country I've been to. Like, it's just my summer sort of go-to, especially if I'm going to something funky. And gradually, out of all that wear, all the buttons have come off, and I was going to.
You haven't bothered to sew them back on again?
No, of course I have. So they all fell off, but they all fell off when I was out and about. So this summer I was going to Italy, and I put it on. I was like, oh, I look so tatty, and I only had loads of like different buttons laying around. So I sewed them all on, and I think it looks better. Like, I think it looks so much. Well, it's just kind of identity, isn't it? And gives some like personal.
There's that trend at the moment, isn't there, for visible mending? So in the past. Yeah. It would be a really expensive job to get something invisibly mended, but now people are just like thinking, oh, sod that, we'll just make it really brightly coloured yarns instead of like, you know, matching yarns, and we'll just make it visible mending. And that has been
based on a Japanese art form.
Yes, what's that called? I can't remember what it's called. I always forget.
Begins with an S.
Sakia, and it's traditionally white on denim.
Yeah,
it's developed over years.
Is it Boro and Shashi?
Oh yes, that's it. That's it. Yeah. Write it in the chat.
Is it Shashi?
I wouldn't know how you spell it. Yeah.
I don't know how to spell it, but I can't actually put it on here. Sorry, because I've got the PDF up, but it's
how good.
It's great.
Yeah, it's
basically hand needle stitching, and you can do it in all different formats. But I'm following somebody on Instagram that does it, and it looks amazing. But yes, Julia, initially it was done on denim.
Yeah, Japanese. Yeah. Something begins with S.
Yeah, TikTok have been doing it, Vicky. Correct. A lot of it. Shashiko, that's it.
Shashiko, yeah. Got there in the end.
There's a lot of it being shown. It's all part of the. Well, I was thinking this morning about make, do, and mend. It's not really a make, do, and mend anymore, is it? I was thinking about those words, and they're not real genuine words anymore. We're not making do, are we, anymore? We're making it look great.
Yeah.
To improve and make it look great.
Everybody's. It's the same with like everything, really. You get these 16-year-olds that do their makeups like professional makeup artists, don't you? I feel like everybody's getting so good at all these things now, and it's becoming like a thing of perfection. And that's why I think that sort of practice is so lovely. Like, we all got together once when I first started my MA, and we did a little session. One of the other students ran a little session on visible mending, and I just think it's lovely when it doesn't look perfect, to be honest, but that's just me.
There is a real skill though in invisible mending. If you've ever watched it being done, either like with knitwear or with woven, you know, on a jacket or something, it's incredible that they can. The skill is unbelievable when you see a hole, and then afterwards when they've fixed it, you cannot even see where it was. It's unbelievably clever,
especially with knitwear, because that's so hard to do. Do you want me to move on to the next one, Katie?
But I'm always too how can I explain it? I'm always a bit too I'm too lazy to sit there and make it perfect. I just get too irritated. So conclusions. So using our positionality in this hypothetical future, what words do you feel best describe 2045? So would we keep, like, for instance, would people keep their clothes pristine, or would they still get holes in even, or like would people be a lot more careful? And so would it be a more tatty world, or would it be, if anything, perfected? More people would be practicing textiles for sure, and mend it.
I think definitely people would look after their clothing better, which I think is what we've lost, because we've got so used to being able to just like go out and buy another pair of trousers, or go out and buy another top, or go about, you know, just or doing it online, or just like order, or send it back if you don't like it, you know.
That's literally what I meant about the whole
fast fashion thing.
Day. It's just
I think if you couldn't actually do that, if you couldn't do that, you would look after your clothing better, and clothing would last longer. I mean, I've had pieces, garments that I've had since the 90s, early 90s, that I still wear, and it, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong. They're a little bit worn, they're a little bit frayed, you know, starting to look a little bit, you know, antique, which they are, but it's like, you know, if you look after it and you care for it, you care for that jumper, and you know, you mend that hole when the moth's eaten it, the little buggers. You can have those garments, your favorite garments, for a long time. And I think people would, if they weren't allowed to or able to buy, because clothing would become so much more expensive, then they would look after it. They would do what we used to do as kids. We used to save up before fast fashion. We would save up for weeks and weeks to buy that jacket in wherever it was, you know. Whereas now, you know that you can just, like, you can buy stuff anytime you like.
We'd make sure it's fitted properly from the start, and was cut properly from the start, and stitched properly from the start.
Yeah, and
if you read what El Black's just said, yeah, to some degree it might appear aggressive, return to earth and domesticated chores, but the pace needs to change, a truer version of materialism where we genuinely value the things we have. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I agree. And I feel like, would it be like a textile skills and stuff, would it be something then that's kind of passed down, and you inherit these skills and you have to undertake these skills, and it's something that you don't only have to learn, but it's something that you want to learn? And because I'm not gonna lie, other than people that I know who are into textiles and want to do it, I don't know anyone that knows how to sew. I don't know anyone who knows how to use a sewing machine, hand stitch, any sort of.
Hey, we're teaching textile teachers at the moment who don't know how to use a sewing machine.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah, but that's not their fault. That's because they've come from other art or different backgrounds. But yes, people aren't necessarily taught those skills. And I think today the younger generation isn't taught those skills. Maybe as an older generation we were. I don't really know. I don't know if that's a genuine thing or not. I was taught it as a child because we couldn't afford to buy clothes all the time, so we had to make our own. Or when I was at university, I would go out and go to a charity shop and upcycle things. Whether that was something we were taught then, I don't know. Or maybe it's something that you're not necessarily taught now. And that's a lot to do with, I think, with the government and education, and they don't give time to these skills. They don't give time for teachers to teach these skills. They don't have time in the lessons. They don't have time within the curriculum to do that.
I've seen a comment, actually. I think it depends on your parents' and grandparents' skills, and I do agree, because my nan was a dressmaker, and yeah, so she used to take me to secondhand shops. I remember really young, there was like a school book day, and she went and got this like giant pair of trousers and turned it into like a Minnie Mouse dress and all this stuff. So she was really artsy and crafty and used to make dolls, and that's kind of where I got it from. But only getting better at embroidery became as I got older, because I was so bad. Like when I was doing textiles at Hillview, I was ridiculously bad at sewing. And then when I started to like thrift and upcycle myself, that's just something that came naturally. So I think it also is down to sort of your ideas and sort of like your inspiration. For me, it's quite a therapeutic process, so I've always kind of been drawn to textiles, but for some people that's not the case. But yeah,
I think it's a life skill though. You know, it's like knowing how to iron a shirt, or knowing how to boil an egg, or knowing how to sew on a button. These are all life skills that we should be, at some point there should be somebody teaching us how to do these things, whether it's in school or it's your parents. We should be taught it.
So interesting question. If we were taught it, if it was something that people had to learn, or at primary school, like you had a little module on it or something like that, do you reckon people would rely less on just buying things? Do you reckon if they're taught from a young age, or even have a like month or two where they're having to use these skills, do you reckon as they got older, they kind of have that in them to want to do it themselves.
I think it would be in you, wouldn't it? It's like learning to ride a bike. You know, once you've learned how to sew on a button, or, you know, any of these skills, hem your trousers, whatever it is, once you've learned how to do it, the fear's gone, and it's there. You can do it. You know that you can do it. Whether you do a good job is beside the point. You know how to do it. And I think if you're taught from an early age, like learning to swim, you know, if you're taught from an early age, just the real basics, then that fear is gone, of like, and that sort of like will to be able to think, oh God, I'll just, you know, boys as well, lads, you know, anybody could do this. Just, you know, I'll sew the button on, or I'll hem my trousers, or I'll turn that skirt up, or I'll take the elastic off that and turn it again, and make, you know, you can do it. There's real simple things that you can do. And once you've started doing it in school or at home or wherever, once you've started doing it, it's there for life. I mean, I didn't do sewing at school because my mum was a tailoress, and she said, no, go and learn something else. I can teach you that, you know. So I never did textiles at school. It was only because I had a huge passion for fashion at the age of like 14 and upwards that I ended up going to art school and then doing a degree in fashion. But my brother and sister, they learned how to sew buttons on, iron their own clothes, turn hems up, you know, as kids, and they didn't do textiles at school either. So
I think it is like want and demand as well. Like Nikki said, like she learned from a young age because they couldn't afford it, and it kind of relates. Like when I was younger, all me and my friends, we all learned how to like take things up because we all need our school skirts shorter.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, doing a hem is one of the most important things for a child at school, so they can take their own skirt up.
That's literally it. And that's where I think like, our motivation to learn was like demand. Like no one else was going to do that for us. So we decided to do it ourselves. And again, coming back around to what we said, this is the thing. Everybody's doing everything for us. You've got fast fashion. You've got ASOS. You order it, it can come that day. And there's no need for people to have to do these things, and that's why unfortunately many people, if you even gave them the option to learn this at primary school, and I even know some families that would be like, well, what's the point? There's other things that are more important, because it in so many people's eyes nowadays, that why would you need to do that? And that's, I think, something that's so sad, because there's so many benefits.
It does have to be taught. It has to be taught from an early age. And I also like Sarah's comment about being taught it's okay to buy secondhand, because I know that when I was a kid, my mum bought us secondhand stuff, but it was a bit of one of those things at school where you didn't fess up to wearing secondhand.
It was when I was at school. Big time.
It has a stigma attached to you, doesn't it?
Stigma, yeah, that's a real stigma, and there shouldn't be. It should be.
It's funny, when you're in school, younger school, it's like that, but when you go to university, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, 100%.
It just changes to being cool when you're at university, and it needs to be more cool at school to say that's what I do because I want to, you know.
I used to hate it when my family would I remember my mum, she went to a boot sale once, and I think I was like year 7 or year 6, and she got me this, was it a Sex Pistols top? I don't know. She got me this top, and I just remember being like, I can't wear this, but how am I gonna not wear it? And I was at that really weird age, and I feel like even when we came into sixth form and we did, you remember we did the Oxfam shop, where we upcycled. Even then, even though that's a project we were doing at school, it was still like, that's a no-no. You don't get your own clothes, do them up. But then you're right, you get to uni and it's like, oh my God, where'd you get that? It's like, it's secondhand. Oh, that's so cool.
So cool. I know. Yeah. My daughter's talking. Has anybody done the Oxfam challenge at the moment? Do you know about the Oxfam challenge? It was September, I think. So for the whole of September, people were trying, the idea is not to buy new for the whole of September. It was an Oxfam challenge. And in my daughter's work, they were all doing it because it was so cool. And they would come in, oh God, what did you get today? Where is it from? Yeah, where did you get that secondhand clothes? And they're all like discussing who got the best buy from the secondhand shop, which I thought was amazing. I mean, you all know I work in a charity, so I was just sat there looking at them all talking about what their best buy was, which I thought was great.
Yeah,
really. I mean, you know, and they're 28 to 30-year-olds. So it is starting to filter in, and I think the Oxfam thing was great as a challenge to do that. because it did get girls of a certain age doing, you know, buying, and I thought
Do you know what as well? Not only is there this stigma, but I remember this specifically, and it's just reminded me. I remember going into my form when I was at secondary school, and I was wearing a jacket, and it was a green tartan oversized jacket I got from a charity shop in town. And I walked in, this girl was like, "Oh, where's that from?" And I was like, "Oh, it's from a charity shop." And she's like, "You're really good at pulling off really ugly clothes." And it's really interesting because there is that whole stigma that it's going to be tatty, it's going to be ugly. And guarantee you, if I said it was from New Look or some, she would not have batted an eyelid because it was basically new. And yeah, I remember thinking at the time that was a bit of a weird, but it is this whole, I don't know where it comes from, but this whole innate tendency to think of it as like dirty.
Yeah,
and like
I know.
It's
changing though. I think it is changing. And I think it's coming also from, like Oxfam, it's coming from the shops themselves.
Yeah.
To us, not just from like, you know, climate change into us. It's coming from actually the charity shops outwards. They're saying, look, here, we're trendy. But the problem is a lot of the charity shops actually are more expensive than Shein and ASOS. And that is the problem.
So I was about to say this, and this is what really annoys me. Yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Carry on.
No, it's just what I'm saying. That's all. They are getting more expensive than buying from Primark.
So this is literally something I'm ridiculously passionate about. So obviously now I've shopped secondhand for like, oh God, I don't like, probably since I was 15, 16. And this is something that really annoys me because I've just seen the prices increase so much. And you now get a lot of influencers on social media and so on shopping secondhand and then creating Depop stores, and a lot of focus is on Depop, okay? And it's not sustainable in any sense, socially or just any, because it's giving unrealistic expectations of what buying secondhand is and the purpose of it. And everything's overpriced and everything's racked up. Well, this is the thing as well. I feel like with Depop and all these things online, it's easier. And another thing that I think puts people off is the aesthetic of charity shops and secondhand shops, because it can be cluttered. Sometimes even it can be a bit smelly, and people can't be bothered to go root around. There's not really a sense of organisation in a lot of them. And then people that can be bothered go, take it, sell it online and rack up the prices, which again, even makes people think that would be the price in a charity shop. I have some friends that genuinely think they'd be a lot more expensive.
They are changing though, Kate. Some of them are. My sister works in a charity shop, and we went into hers, my daughter and me, a little while ago, and it's all colour coordinated and it's huge, yeah. And there's lots of space between the racks, and it's all really nice, really nice. They're not all like that.
Trade is very good at that.
Yeah.
Trade shops are actually really beautifully done. And some of the Oxfam vintage shops are done really well.
Yeah, I've been to some of the Oxfam vintage shops and they're really nice.
Yeah. The trouble is too is that people on Depop and things sell things more expensively and call it vintage. When it's not vintage at all, it's just secondhand and probably from Primark.
Yeah, and I think so a girl on my course, I interviewed her when I was starting this unit, and she just had this interesting story. So she'd come over from India and she was rooting around and she loved all the English charity shops. And she went to buy a jacket in one in London and it was like 20 something quid. And then she went in, where did H&M, and a nice puffer jacket was cheaper. So she just bought it from H&M instead. And I think, yeah, it is something that is just, it's shocking, to be honest. It's not something that I would have expected to happen. And you wonder why this is. Is it because it's becoming trendier?
It's become trendier.
Yeah.
It's all. It's part of it. It's still part of that greenwashing that you were going before.
Yeah.
It becomes you doing this, and this is good for the planet. When actually what you might be doing might be not good for the planet at all, because even if you're buying things from charity shops. So my young daughter is quite a little bit of a shopaholic. but she does buy a lot of things from charity shops, but she still only wears them once and takes them back. So the cycle's not actually being broken, it's just being perpetuated.
Yeah. And actually reading Vicky's comment, the problem is also sizing. The really pretty stuff isn't available in plus sizes. Yeah. Lots, hang on, let me scroll down. Lost count of how many granny skirts I've seen on, 100%.
Yeah. Katie, we need to finish up in a minute.
Yeah.
Shall I go to the last? Is there anything?
Well, this is, and then if we just say, what object would you find there? What would you find in this? Well, lots of sewing machines.
You'd find my sewing machines because I still have them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, probably a lot more clothing. Well, I guess, I don't know, you'd see a lot more like, visible mending. You'd see a lot more because people wouldn't have like expertise in it, would they? Not everyone. It's, Anyway, I don't want to keep everyone. Beautiful scissors.
Yeah, scissors, definitely scissors.
Yeah, 100%. A lot more mismatched buttons. People
Maybe that's what we should start collecting now, or start designing a really amazing pair of scissors that people would covet in the future.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, if you take really good quality tailor scissors, people covet those already.
They do.
I still have my scissors for 20. I've had proper ones for about 20 years.
Oh gosh, I've had mine about 40 years.
So, they do the old-fashioned proper sewing scissors, the heavy ones that, lasted. We do covet them.
And you have proper sharpeners, because in the old days we used to have people that come to your door to, oh God, this is my age.
Yeah.
And they'd sharpen your scissors. God, I'm old.
The scissor man used to come round.
I am so old. On that note, I think we will just go to your last screen, Katie.
So I've added some of my details and a project I'm running at the moment, which I've set up an Instagram for, called Restorative Textiles. And I'm working on it where it's basically mixing reuse and upcycling with crafting textiles to benefit wellbeing. And it's a project that's it's been really good, and I'm hoping to take it further. I hear
you're also going into schools and doing workshops, is that right?
So I'm at the moment I'm going to finish up my I'm going to finish up my degree, because I finished in December, but then from like mid-December onwards I'm going to be available to do more things. So but I should have included them. I actually went and did a workshop with Hayley yesterday, and that was really successful, and we developed these little wait, let me see, I can just quickly, I don't know, I should have put it on, but I literally didn't think. So we developed these, I call them like patches of personal importance. Wait, I don't know, let me put it up to the camera, let me know if you can see it.
They are amazing.
They look great.
So this is what the class made yesterday. It was really lovely, and it was great. They really enjoyed it. So it's all for benefiting well-being and mental clarity.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Kate. This download, go on.
I was saying thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. This download will be available in our resources pack. So if you want to use it in school, to motivate your students or to form a discussion. I know most of us have to actually teach climate control and sustainability within school. So this is something maybe you can use, and you can go through, if I go back up, you can go through some of these and separate them if you want to. It might be a good idea that you could give environment, or if you separate your students into little groups, like one could do environment, one could do law, and you could do a cascade workshop where they all come back to the middle and discuss what they have discussed in their groups. There's lots of different things you can do with it in a lesson if you want to. I'm sure it could be a whole hour's lesson if you want to go through it. So that will be available on the download. Dawn does have it as a PDF, I believe, Dawn.
I do, and I'm going to put it up now.
And Dawn, will it be up on YouTube?
Eventually.
The recording will be as well.
Because Louis couldn't get on and he did want to see it.
Eventually it will go up, yes.
A couple of people have already asked me if they can.
Yeah, I will endeavour to try and put, I'm a bit behind with my uploading YouTube things at the moment, but I will put it up.
So thank you, Kate, so much, and good luck with your MA.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Good luck with everything that you're doing. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks.
Go back
Thanks.
to the screen. And thank you everyone for attending. Hi, Faye, by the way. See you
Thank
again
you, everybody.
soon. Thank you for coming, everybody. Hi, Mita. Thank you for coming. So I'm just going to some names that I know, and Vicky.
Mita, good to see you, Mita. I'll speak to you tomorrow.
Yeah. What was it? I don't know. Still on it.
You're right, Sarah. If you go down to the bottom of your screen, there'll be a red leave button. If you just move, we can't hear you. Oh, Fashioning Our World at Salisbury Museum. Well done, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Kate.
Well done. We've got the recording for you, so there will be a recording, and Dawn will have all those messages and things like that in the chat.